Tonight, part 2 with VJ and songwriter Chris Ward talking Diana Ross, Rick Moranis, Mark Knopfler, Phil Silver, stories from Live Aid, how J.D. Roberts became John, and which 80s music video truly offended him. It's probably not the one you'd think. Hit that subscribe button and grab a glass of milk. It's Up All Night with Bob.
All right, now we're going to play clickbait. Number 1, Christopher Ward has a story about former VJ and future Fox News correspondent John Roberts that changes everything.
I don't think I do. JD was pretty buttoned down, you know. He had it all under control. He was a master of television at a very young age. He was the guy who could have done anybody else's job, and if you gave him half a chance, would. Whether it was like running a camera or, you know, doing an edit. Like he'd be in the editing suite doing the editing himself, and the editor would be sitting there beside him. And he also effectively trained Erica M.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he worked with her at the end of the broadcast day, and you know, did demos with her and kept working until she got up to speed to be on air.
J.D. Roberts back with Erica M., who just joined us and wouldn't come on before because...
I had to see you two, and they were well worth waiting for. They were so great. I mean, if you can't pledge money after seeing them, if they haven't wrenched your soul, I don't know what's going to move you now.
Harvey's at Barton Street in Hamilton to challenge all Harveys across Canada. We know that there's fire departments, there's police stations, everybody's watching TV. And what about you cable companies that are carrying us? Get on it, okay? We don't have enough time to give the address, so why don't we just say that we're going back to Live Aid and we'll be back with the address.
Right, we'll be back. What, and really soon? Stay tuned.
You know, it's funny you describe him as buttoned down. Of course, his image at the time, especially because he was on in the late 70s doing new music and whatnot, was, you know, kind of a rock and roller. And then I sort of followed his career and was on, I think, CityTV for a number of years, and then ultimately wound up at Fox. But he certainly does seem like one of those broadcasters, like he could leave Fox tomorrow and go join MSNBC without skipping a beat. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think he keeps it, for the most part, pretty apolitical.
What happened to Chris Ward at Live Aid will, I don't know, shock you, surprise you. Let's say shock. Do you have a story about Live Aid?
We'd gone over to do the Dire Straits Princess Trust Fund concert. And that was when they were at their absolute peak, and Sting came out and sang I Want My MTV, and Charles and Diana were ushered in at the last possible moment. Charles clapped on the 1 and 3, of course. Just what you'd expect.
Story of his life.
I did interview Mark Knopfler, who was just insufferable. He was... I remember I would ask him a question, and he would just like do these big sighs, like, how insufferable can you be, kind of implied, right? Probably the brief moment in time, but the most interesting moment for me was, again, in advance of the show. We had been asking to interview Bob Geldof and had been rebuffed countless times because he was just, you know, like a man on fire in those days.
Yeah.
And so we were allowed to come upstairs in the Polygram building and sort of stand back and shoot a little bit of him doing his thing. And he had like this team of people with the label and press people and so on, because they were right down to the short strokes on this thing.
Right.
And I remember seeing him like talking to, you know, like a Saudi prince, you know, berating him for not getting the hookup so that people could use their Visa cards and stuff like that. And then he's like, got one phone going, and he hangs it up and he grabs another one. It's like, it's Huey Lewis. He's like, I don't care how fucking pregnant your wife is, you will be on that stage in Philadelphia. Right? And it was kind of terrifying watching him, you know?
Yeah.
And then, boom, somebody turns around and goes, you want to interview Bob? We're like, yes. And we go, where do you go? Where do we go? Well, I don't know. Anyway, where do you want to go? So we saw there was a balcony, little sort of Juliet balcony off the Polygram office. So we went out there with Bob, and you know, he wanted to ask us the questions. He wanted to know, well, are you guys all hooked up? And because it was about raising the money, you know, for him.
Sure.
Yeah. And and I said, well, I don't really know. We've been gone for a couple of weeks. I don't know what they've done. Who's your boss? I said, well, John Martin. He said, well, what's his phone number? And I'm like, oh, it's this, and this. He proceeds to get on the phone and call. And of course, John is down the road at the bar, right? And X-rays, as he always was. And so Geldof gets the number at X-rays, calls X-rays, the bartender answers. And it's like, he turns to John, John, yeah, it's Bob Geldof for you. Hands him the phone across the bar. And Geldof reads him the riot act. It's like, this is what you are doing. And John was like, yep, which is what's unusual for him. And they got it hooked up and raised a whole pile of money, which was great. The loveliest moment for me in the interview was we'd sort of covered all we needed to cover. I mean, and he was like a man possessed. I mean, I remember his eyes just looked like train tunnels. They were just so black with fatigue, and he was pretty crazed. And I said something about, are you looking forward to, getting back with the band? And I mentioned a show that I'd seen. And it's like his face softened and his body softened, and he was like, yeah. He says, I'll be glad when I can do that. And it was like you could see that as passionate as he was about, organizing this Live Aid and this huge, event, earth-shattering event. He's a musician, and he's an entertainer, and he wanted to be back playing for people.
Let me do one more. Christopher Ward reveals what Diana Ross once told him, and it's mind-scrambling. Did you meet Diana Ross?
I wrote a bunch of songs with Diana Ross. It was really...
You wrote with her?
Yeah, I wrote...
Oh, my goodness. Oh, this is tremendous. So what was that like? I'm sorry that's such a general kind of Chris Farley question, but
No, it's a good Chris Farley question. Yeah, I mean, we shared a business manager, and her business manager called me up and said, hey, do you want to work with Diana? I'm like, yes. And he says, okay, great. Well, I'll try and set it up. I'll pitch her. I'm working with you, and blah, 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 and I'll get back to you. I'm like, wow, that would be amazing. And I went to the gym. My wife calls me at the gym. Diana Ross wants you at her place in an hour. I'm like, what? So I thought for sure it would be like, 6 months from now.
Yeah,
maybe,
right.
So I get to her place up in the hills in Brentwood. And again, it was like the sweet personal stuff that kind of hits you and you remember. She had lined up her children's boots and backpacks for going to camp that day,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, and I thought there's going to be just this parade of security and handlers and hairdressers. I mean, I just expected that. And this wizened old gardener let me in the house, and Diana leans over the balcony and goes, hey, come on up, right? So I go up, and she just starts talking, just starts yakking at me and about the music she wants to make and blah, 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 blah. And then, then she's asking me my opinion, like, what kind of record do you think I should make? I'm thinking, oh, God, what am I supposed to say here? But, we sort of navigated all of that. And then we talked about, like, what we would write about and that kind of thing. And then she said, oh, did you bring something to play for me? I said, yeah. And I had a song that I'd done. It was a big sort of torchy song by an Australian singer named Tina Arena, phenomenal singer. But I knew that it was a good song, and I thought that would be something that she would like. And she said, oh, great. Well, I just got some new equipment, so it's over there. And I turn, and there's like a wall of gear.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, fuck. I'm like the least technically inclined person in the world, right? And so I'm just sweating bullets. I'm over there, and I'm on my knees, like just pushing buttons and trying to open a drawer to play the CD back. And I'm not having any luck. Next thing you know, Diana is on her knees beside me, and the Ross dew is like pressed into the side of my face, right? And I remember, usually you just try to power through something, thinking I gotta make this work, I gotta make this happen, or this opportunity is going to go away. But I do remember having that sort of 30,000 foot view and thinking, I'm on my knees beside Diana Ross.
Yeah.
The hair is pressed into the side of my face. I'm trying to figure out how to work this wall of equipment that she just acquired. And then magically, I hit the right button, sound came on, music played, she loved it, and we worked together.
That must be unbelievable. I mean, I've been in a room when someone is reading a script of mine and it's excruciating. I have to walk out because I'm like, why aren't they? Is there a what page are they on? There's a laugh on that page. If they laugh, what are you while you're playing your music for Diana Ross? Are you watching her face? What do you do in that moment?
You consciously don't watch her face if you
that makes sense.
Because you don't want to put any pressure on the person. You want to just be as neutral as possible. Let them express delight, disgust, surprise, whatever is going to come.
What's your favorite Diana Ross song that you didn't write?
That I didn't write?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Where Did Our Love Go? The Supremes.
I mean, kind of hard.
I could listen to that song a million times, and I probably did as a kid.
Number one, you performed sketch comedy prior to much, and I usually ask some variation of this question anyway. What was the first thing you remember kind of hearing or seeing that you really found funny?
Well, I remember thinking Phil Silvers was pretty damn funny.
On the was it the Phil Silvers show? What were you watching?
Sargeant Bilko.
Sargeant Bilko?
Yeah. And the motor pool and just the, that whole thing.
No idea our jeeps were in such a condition.
Oh, sir, I thought you knew. I thought that's why you got your own little cute foreign car. You see, the rest of us walk whenever it's possible, sir.
How many jeeps are in this condition?
10. I counted them this morning, sir. 10 jeeps, but I wouldn't condemn them, sir.
Who said anything about condemning?
Certainly not I, sir. The men are soldiers. They're supposed to take certain risks.
He was so cocky and I don't know. There's something about him. Just tickled me.
For number two, for a number of years, I think even after officially leaving Much, you would return to host the annual Fromage show. So the Fromage, for those who don't recall, was the cheesiest videos of the year.
Hello, it's back. Oh, so stinky.
Of the year. What was the cheesiest video you remember featuring on that show?
I think probably the heavy metal ones, and I don't know if I could think of one in particular, but something like Cherry Pie by Warrant or something like that. Just the complete apotheosis of tasteless and just delightfully so.
I was going to ask dogs or cats, but I think we know the answer.
Yeah, the Schnauzer is king.
The Schnauzer is king. I'm with you on that. Here's not Beatles or Stones.
Got to be the Beatles, Hey, buddy. Here. Rob wants to meet you.
I very much do.
He really likes Schnauzers.
Oh, schmoopers.
And
oh, schmoopy poopies. Oh, he's such a furball. This is a Schnauzer. I don't like it when they're too shorn.
Well, when they do the Fu Manchu mustache thing and the topiary with the legs, that whole move. Now, he's going to the groomer tomorrow, so he's maybe a little shaggier than he normally would be. But
wow, he's a good boy. Zeppelin or Allman Brothers?
Almonds.
Interesting. Number 9, you live in Santa Monica. How often are you recognized in L.A. by Canadians who remember you from Much? That ever happen?
It's diminishing with time as I age.
We're all getting older.
Yeah, so I don't have to worry about my privacy too much.
You don't have to worry about your privacy? Yeah. But I'll bet I'm sure periodically, though, you must meet folks like myself for whom you were such kind of a big part of their adolescence, yeah?
Yeah, I'm always amazed when people tell me that they, like you, grew up watching City Limits, and I just think, really? I mean, it seemed like the show that 4 people were watching.
Receive personalized instruction in the boss's own songwriting techniques.
Themes, cars, props, girls' names, and locations. Okay, Bryce, what have you got?
Well, I got in my 83 Mazda, and I drove to the service station. A good friend of mine came with me, and he was playing his new Ovation.
No, we're dealing with early model American cars between the years of 1957 and 1962 only. Ford, Chevy, Dodge, and occasionally Cadillac. Got it?
I'm Shecky Ward. You must be the audience.
And you're watching us now. In stereo, yeah, that's right. Just take it easy. Okay. Yeah.
It goes back to that, you and I were, I think I had this story when we were chatting in the fall about just the idea that somebody is up with you live. And I think I was just telling this story. It's not my story. It's a Rick Moranis story when he was first starting out as a DJ. And speaking of Zeppelin, guy kept calling in night after night asking for Stairway to Heaven. I want to hear Stairway to Heaven. I want to hear Stairway to Heaven. I want to hear Stairway. And finally, Rick, after a couple months of this goes, every night, every other night, whatever, you're calling me asking me to, you must like Zeppelin. He says, yeah, Zeppelin rules. He says, well, you must own the album. He goes, I got 2 copies. He goes, well, why do you keep calling me asking to hear Stairway to Heaven? He says, I want to hear it on the radio.
I love that. That's perfect. That's just the right answer.
Number 10, a time of interesting fashion choices. Who was the best VJ and the worst dressed VJ? Best dressed VJ, worst dressed VJ.
Oh, gosh, I'm sure it depends on your taste. I guess Williams would be probably the best. I mean, he had this whole very artful thing. He'd go in with his scarves and stuff, right?
A lot of scarves.
That was pretty cool look. And it was his look, He really made that work.
General public on Much Music with tenderness from the LP All the Rage. Going out to the folks like Steve Macklin, the Pointed Sticks, Bob Rock of the Palos, who are currently, currently in the studio with Dave Foster, working on a brand new album, and we wish them all the greatest of success.
Steve Anthony's idea of fashion, on the other hand, was to wear a ratty old robe and...
Plus, he kind of had the hockey hair a little bit. It wasn't like a full kind of mullet Tennessee Waterfall, but it was a big kind of 80s, right?
No, it was business in front, party in the back.
Business in front, party in the back, yeah. Well, here's one. So this was the early 80s. Reagan's president, moral majority, PMRC's coming, all that stuff. Nonsense. Was there anything airing at the time that offended you? Or conversely, that maybe was in the running one week and didn't make it to air. But was there anything kind of? You mentioned some of the heavy metal videos. Some of those haven't obviously aged as well. But was there anything at the time that you thought, I don't want any part of this. I don't want this. I don't want to show this video on my show. I don't want to meet this band.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who just? Yeah.
We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. It was the essence of ghastly in that moment. Because he's sitting there as smug as can be, pounding his fists on this table, and there's all this visual stuff going on behind him.
Right.
And it's kind of basically saying, well, don't blame me, man.
Yeah.
I didn't cause all this shit to happen. Like,
yeah. Man. Yeah. I remember a review at the time said, Dear Billy Joel, a list is not a song.
Well, don't tell that to Alanis Morissette.
Yes,
she has some pretty great list songs.
She does. That's true. Spring, summer, winter, or fall? What's your season?
I guess summer. This is my birthday.
Oh, okay. There you go. Last book you read?
I just read Kevin Wilson's book, Nothing to See Here. It's fantastic.
Number 14, do you cook? And if so, what do you consider your signature dish?
I do cook. I mean, I'm not that creative. I follow the recipe pretty much, but I have the New York Times cooking app. And it's mostly like weeknight stuff, so you can do it like in a half an hour or so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get a lot of recipes from there as well.
So the cumin lime shrimp is pretty rocking.
Cumin lime shrimp. I'm writing this down. I have it on tape. But first record you ever bought?
The first single was first record I got was a 45 of Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley.
Oh, wow.
The Kingston Trio.
The Kingston Trio.
And the second one I got was The Battle of New Orleans by Johnny Horton.
Oh,
and the third one I got was El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Oh, I love Marty Robbins.
Out in the West Texas town. I don't know why I was thinking about this the other day, so that's why they're all so fresh in my memory. But I realized that there's things in common, that there's a narrative thread through all of this stuff. There's just great storytelling, and I realized how much I really like that. it didn't matter to me that it might be considered country music or folk music or whatever, but just the stories really hooked me.
What's the last record you bought? Are you full on streaming now? Do you ever go down to Amoeba? Do you what's your
I do like the vinyl. I've got a little vinyl room here off of my living room, and I bought a new pressing of Waltz for Debbie by Bill Evans, and it sounds immaculate.
That's neat. I haven't, prior to the pandemic, I would go down to Amoeba all the time. They've now changed locations, but at Amoeba, which is a terrific record store here in Los Angeles, which is akin to the glory days of when I was younger, and you could go down to Queen or down to Young and Dundas and A&A and Sam's and all that.
Are you too young to have hung out at Sam the Record Man?
No, not at all. And I
went for quite a while, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, I went to Sam the Record Man all the time, and then of course when HMV opened down the street. But when I first started really buying records in my teens, there was a place called the Record Peddler at Young and College. Do you remember the Record Peddler?
Yep.
Yeah, that was really neat. I got a lot of stuff.
Sam's was like it was a destination for me and my friends every Saturday morning, because we'd go down and we'd see all the 45s on the wall, and they'd move them around according to where they were on the Chum chart. The new Chum chart would have just come out, so we'd get that, and we would pore over it to see where our favorite songs had landed that week on the top, the charts.
Gosh, that's so wild. I'd forgotten about that. I lived by the Chum chart. I got up every single Saturday morning. They would play, I don't know if it was Roger Ashby or who hosted the show. I think it was on Chum AM. And they would do the top 30 countdown every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I would sit there with my tape recorder and get all my favorite, favorite songs. But whenever I had a couple of bucks in my pocket, that was usually where I went straight to the 45s. Favorite TV show? Are you much of a watcher?
I just have no memory. They come and go. Myers called me a television illiterate, and proceeded to give me a list of shows that I was required to watch at least once, including like Seinfeld. Like, I've only seen one episode of Seinfeld. What does that tell you?
Oh wow, yeah,
yeah. You know what? I love the Bosch series on Prime. It was on Prime.
Oh yeah, that's on Amazon, I think. Yeah, on Prime. Yeah, Mike's probably into a lot of those old. Well, I know he's into like The Prisoner and all those kind of old British series.
I'm not a number. I'm a free man.
Yeah. And his new show, by the way, is really fun with a version of Shep Gordon.
You know what? I'm going to say The Prisoner. I'll put that in Bosch, because that's actually, that. Thank you for reminding me. I loved that show.
Oh, it's
Patrick McGoohan was just like the ultimately cool.
Two more, and then you're out of here. A song you wish you'd written.
Oh man, Son of a Preacher Man.
Hard to argue with.
Well, it's that same Southern thing like Black Velvet, right?
It has that, right? That's Dusty in Memphis, right?
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I just love those sultry kind of feels,
Yeah.
Rainy Night in Georgia.
Yeah. A biggest hope for the future.
That the Republican Party disappears.
Yeah, I was going to say not lapsing into some kind of weird.
They're welcome to be reborn as something more humane at any time.
At any rate, Mr. Christopher Ward, I cannot thank you enough for taking some time to do this today. Obviously, as I've well articulated by now, I'm a huge fan, but it's a real thrill just to get to know you a little bit and to hear some of this stuff. And you were a really big part of we'll call it the Canadian Generation X. And we thank you for your service.
Thank you, Rob. This was really, really enjoyable. Good luck with the show, and I'll see you at Pete's.
Hey now, thanks for watching. If you're in a like and comment and subscribing mood, please do that. It would help a lot. Next week, Kids in the Halls, Mark McKinney returns live to the Clubhouse with Bob for our Summertime Spectacular. You don't want to miss it. I love you all. Good night, everybody.